Let's travel back for a second to the wild days of the Japanese bubble economy in the late 80s and early 90s. Honestly, this was an era that sparked an absolute high-stakes automotive arms race, and it gave birth to a car that was undeniably the maddest of the entire bunch, the Mitsubishi GTO.
Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're unpacking the rise, the fall, and the modern resurrection of an absolute legend. We are going to dive deep into the mind-blowing tech, the inherent mechanical flaws, and the very real reality for modern buyers of the Mitsubishi 3000GT VR4, which of course was known globally as the GTO.
Here's a quick look at our roadmap for this analysis. We're going to kick things off with the 90s JDM arms race. See how this car was decades ahead of its time, break down its status as a heavyweight grand tour, walk through the generations of the legend, and finally look at buying a VR4 today.
So, Section 1, the 90s JDM arms race, the context and the hook.
To really appreciate this machine, you have to look at how Japanese manufacturers were just relentlessly proving to the West exactly what they were capable of. It was a massive clash of engineering philosophies. You had American muscle relying on brute force and massive V8s, while cars like the VR4 leaned into smaller displacement, twin turbos, and just overwhelming technological superiority. I actually have a huge soft spot for this forced induction approach. I used to own a 90 Daihatsu Charade GTI, quirky little 3-cylinder single turbo, and today I drive an '01 Audi RS4 with a twin turbo setup, so I totally get the appeal. But even compared to modern standards, what Mitsubishi was pulling off back then was straight out of science fiction.
Moving on to Section 2, decades ahead of its time, the tech showcase.
What's absolutely fascinating is that the VR4 wasn't just matching its rivals. It was packing technology that wouldn't become the industry standard for another 20 years. Seriously, 20 years ahead of the curve. Mitsubishi offered a tunable exhaust system with a bypass valve right from the factory. You could literally push a button in the cabin to switch between a quiet, stealthy touring mode and a loud, aggressive sport mode. You see that on Porsches and Ferraris today, sure, but in the early 90s, that was unheard of.
And just look at this breathless list of features. I mean, this car actually beat the McLaren F1 to market with active aerodynamics. It had a front air dam that dropped down 80 millimeters and a rear wing that automatically tilted 15 degrees the second you hit 50 miles per hour. Add in electronically controlled suspension that actively adapted to your driving, four-wheel steering to carve through corners, full-time all-wheel drive, and that twin-turbo V6 pushing up to 320 horsepower.
All that wizardry translated to some incredible real-world performance, thanks to that insane all-wheel drive traction, which made it virtually impossible to spin the tires on a dry launch, by the way. A 1991 VR4 hit 60 miles per hour in just 5.1 seconds during an Auto Week test. To put that into perspective, it beat out the much lighter and way more expensive Acura NSX off the line. But let's look at Section 3, the heavyweight grand tour, the catch. Because, every hero has a fatal flaw. For the VR4, the sheer cost of carrying all that groundbreaking technology was physical weight. As one reviewer hilariously pointed out, it weighs as much as a 747, relatively speaking. Tipping the scales at over 3,700 pounds, hauling around all that all-wheel drive and four-wheel steering hardware severely hampered its agility. It gripped the road like glue, sure, but it suffered from noticeable understeer and totally lacked the nimble, tossable feedback of a true lightweight sports car.
Adding to the car's somewhat confused identity here in North America was the Dodge Stealth. This is a perfect example of a captive import. Basically, the Stealth was mechanically identical to the VR4, fully built by Mitsubishi over in Japan, but it was styled and sold by Chrysler. It created this really weird market overlap where they were essentially competing against themselves, right up until the Stealth was finally discontinued in 1996.
And if the weight wasn't enough, despite being this large, heavy grand tourer, Edmunds noted it had a ridiculously cramped interior. They literally joked that sticking people in the rear seat was cruel and unusual punishment. Combine that with pathetically little storage space in the rear hatch, and it ended up being a highly compromised daily driver.
Which brings us to Section 4, generations of the legend, the resurgence.
Despite those initial flaws with weight and practicality, the VR4 is currently experiencing a massive resurgence among classic car buyers. Looking at the timeline, the first generation brought us those iconic 90s pop-up headlights. But the second generation, running from 1994 to 1996, is widely considered the absolute sweet spot for ownership. You get bumped up to 320 horsepower, you get a robust 6-speed manual transmission, and better interior materials, all just before the tech became a bit too dated in its final years.
It's also super important to mention that the Japanese domestic market got something incredibly special, the exclusive GTO MR, or Mitsubishi Racing Edition. To combat that huge weight issue we talked about, Mitsubishi literally deleted the four-wheel steering, the ABS, and the active aero. The result? They dropped the weight down to 3,638 pounds, turning into a much sharper, far more capable track car.
Now let's get practical with Section 5, buying a VR4 today, the buyer's reality.
So if you're in the market for one of these complex GDM legends today, you have to realize this is not a Honda Civic. You need a very strict test drive protocol. The transfer case is the absolute Achilles heel of this car. You want to drive it in tight circles at low speed and listen very closely for whining or feel for binding. Missing a vibration right there could mean a sudden $3,000 rebuild right out of the gate. You also got to check the turbos for shaft play, which means feeling for any wiggle in the internal turbines, and always manually test that active aero, because replacement parts for that system are basically impossible to find now.
Because these twin-turbo V6 engines generate a ton of heat under the hood and feature massive technological complexity, you should actually look for a well-documented, higher-mileage car that was driven regularly. That's almost always a safer bet than some low-mileage garage queen. A car that sits around for years just develops dry rot, seal leaks, and stuck components. You definitely want to see proof of regular timing belt changes and totally refreshed cooling systems.
And as you can see, the days of scooping up a cheap VR4 are officially over. Driver quality cars are sitting comfortably between $15,000 and $25,000 right now, and excellent condition models are easily pushing past $35,000. As 90s Japanese sports cars continue to appreciate across the board, finding a clean, unmolested VR4 with fully functional tech is turning into a genuine investment piece.
Let's wrap things up. Conclusion: the legacy of the VR4.
We've seen exactly how the VR4's bloated weight and immense complexity kind of hindered its agility back in the day, but honestly, we cannot deny its brilliance. It fearlessly laid down the technological groundwork for the modern, all-wheel drive performance cars we absolutely love today. Which leaves us with one final thought to chew on. Are you willing to embrace all those mechanical gremlins for the chance to own a Grand Tour that was truly 2 decades ahead of its time? Thanks so much for hanging out with me for this explainer, and I'll catch you on the next one.